All right, today we're diving into a really interesting new AI model from Liquid AI. It's called the LFM24B. We're going to look at what the company says it can do versus what happens when you actually put it to the test. This is all about promise versus reality. So let's jump right in.
So let's kick things off with the question that's on everyone's mind in AI right now. Is bigger really always better? I mean, we see these giant models with hundreds of billions of parameters, right? But is that the only way forward? Or is there a smarter, more efficient way to get the job done?
Well, that's exactly where Liquid AI steps in with their new model, the LFM24B. They're basically throwing down the gauntlet and saying, hey, maybe you don't need a monster-sized model to get amazing results. They're calling it an efficient giant. So, how on earth are they pulling that off?
Okay, so what is it that makes this model so different? Well, it all comes down to its architecture. And trust me, this is where it gets really, really interesting.
The secret sauce here is a pretty cool technique called Mixture of Experts, or MO for short. Think of it like this. You walk into a massive library. Instead of having to read every single book to find an answer, you just go talk to the one librarian who's an expert on your topic. That's basically what Mo does. The model has all this knowledge, but for any one problem, it only calls up a small, specialized team of experts to handle it. And that is what makes it so incredibly efficient.
And you can really see this efficiency when you look at the numbers. Okay, so the total number of parameters is 24 billion. That's a lot. But here's the kicker. The number of active parameters, the ones it's actually using at any one time, is only 2.3 billion. That massive gap between the total and the active parameters, that's what makes this thing so fast and so light.
Yeah, just let that sink in for a second. 2.3 billion active parameters. This is the magic number. This is what makes it possible for a model that's technically 24 billion parameters strong to potentially run right on your own laptop. It's all about speed and, making it accessible to more people. All right, so it's fast, it's efficient, but what is it actually for? What did its creators design it to do? Let's take a look at the official use cases, because this is super important.
So right off the bat, the creators are saying this is not a do-everything, jack-of-all-trades model. It's built for very specific things. We're talking agentic tool use, calling functions, searching the web. But the real sweet spot seems to be those on-device, privacy-first jobs. Things like summarizing sensitive documents right on your machine, or running a customer support chatbot where the data never, ever has to leave your local network. That's a huge deal.
Okay, so that's the promise on the box, right? That's what it's supposed to do. But does it actually hold up in the real world? Well, one reviewer decided to find out and really put it through its paces, and the results were not what you'd expect at all.
And they did not start with an easy one. The first test was wildly ambitious. The reviewer basically said, hey, create a 3D GTA-style game for me in a single HTML file using Three.js. I mean, we're talking cars, buildings, physics, the whole shebang. This was a massive stress test for any AI model.
And the result? Oh boy, it was a spectacular failure. Just an absolute dumpster fire. Instead of a cool 3D world, the reviewer got a blank screen, and then just total gibberish. And to top it all off, it started hallucinating random Chinese characters. It wasn't just wrong, it was completely off the rails.
So yeah, it just completely fell apart on that big coding task. And you might think, okay, maybe that was just too hard. But the reviewer tried a much simpler test, just some animated fireworks. And guess what? Same result. More gibberish. The verdict was crystal clear. When it comes to coding, this model is a total bust.
But wait, this is where the story takes a really fascinating turn. Because it fails so miserably at coding, you'd think the model is just useless, right? Well, not so fast. It turns out, this is kind of like a tale of two completely different models rolled into one.
So when the reviewer switched gears and started giving it language-based tasks, suddenly the model came alive. It was like night and day. It perfectly translated a sentence into 9 different languages just as asked. It got nuance, it got humor, it even gave some pretty funny and clever advice on how to annoy your in-laws. It could even do simple math. This was a complete 180 from the coding disaster.
And this language skill really shone when it was asked to do something complex, like write a philosophical piece on free will and determinism. The reviewer was blown away, saying it was coherent, well-structured, and surprisingly free of hallucination. So for abstract, creative writing, it wasn't just good, it was excellent.
So what we're seeing here is this crazy split personality. On one hand, for coding, it's a disaster. It fails, it spits out gibberish, it hallucinates. But on the other hand, for language and reasoning, it's a rock star. It excels at creative writing, it follows complex instructions, it understands nuance. It's truly like two different AIs in the same box.
So, what's the final takeaway? What are we supposed to make of this Jekyll and Hyde performance?
Well, the big takeaway here is that the LFM24B isn't a flawed all-arounder. It's not trying to be everything to everyone and failing. No, what these tests show is that it's actually a highly capable, laser-focused specialist. It was never meant to be a master of all trades.
And when you think about it like that, it all starts to make sense. Who is this model for? Is it for a coder? No way, not a chance. But is it for a developer who needs super fast, on-device language processing for things like RAG pipelines, summarization, or chatbots? You bet. Its strengths line up perfectly with what its creators said it was for all along.
And all this leads to a much bigger question for the future of AI. Does this model point to where we're headed? Maybe the future isn't one giant supermodel that can do everything. Maybe it's an entire ecosystem of these smaller, hyper-efficient specialist models, each one an expert in its own little niche. Now that is something to think about.